Um, and with that, I'd like to turn it over to you, Tim, if you're ready to share.
Well, I think as everybody knows, Murray and I were on different television stations in the 1970s, and that's how we got to know each other. And everybody thought we were competitors, but in truth, we very quickly became bosom buddies. Our families lived near each other. We became close. The kids were close. And we were like brothers. I mean, it's pure and simple. We really were. And I can remember vividly when he first proposed the idea of what was to become the Genesis Fund, now Foundation. I said to him, Murray, that sounds almost impossible to start something like that from scratch. Are you sure? And we talked for many hours about it. And he had amazing courage to give up a tenured position at a major medical center, chief of genetics at the floating hospital Tufts, and start this thing literally from scratch. And he pulled it off, as we all know. That's why we're here today. I just still today, these many years later, marvel at his insight and his willingness to take that huge risk personally and professionally. And he did it because, as you've already said, he saw the need. He saw the need for coordinated care that was missing and for the communication that was missing between specialists. And he saw it firsthand every day. So he had strong motivation. But I'm sitting here tonight and my hat is still off to him for what he pulled off. It was amazing.
Thanks very much, Tim. Dick
Matt,
Flavin?
Can I say something? Because my time is tight. Hi, I'm Patrick Lyons, and when I was in my budding young career in Boston, I was invited to join the Genesis Fund, and it was actually the first charity that we became involved with, and it was at its inception. And I remember, Jack and Marcy Williams and Diego Messina and John Havlicek and Pam Spitzer today and Natalie and the whole crew of people. And what I recall was that all the events that were put together by the Genesis Fund were always meant to be a cut above and a terrific experience for the contributor and the users. And I got to tell you something. The events that were put forth by the Genesis Fund under Murray were remarkable. They were remembered, and I think they set the course for this wonderful charity still hanging on today as it has and as it does. And it was all owing to the original board members who got the wheel rolling and did a terrific job. So I propose a toast to Murray and all those other fine folks who, started this wonderful, wonderful organization. And it was a lot of fun too, by the way, all along. It's always been a lot of fun. The golf tournaments, the fishing tournaments, the dinners, it was fabulous, and it underscored and supported the great work that Murray did. So cheers to all.
Oh, thank you, Patrick, especially coming from you who knows one or two things about events. That's very high praise. So thank you.
And I also forgot a lot of names. So it was forgetting, I'm just thinking of the ones that came to my mind straight away. But it was fantastic.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dick Flavin, are you ready to go?
I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I think of Murray these days, and I think of more than 40 years ago when I was doing offbeat commentaries on Channel 4. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Sure can.
So I was doing these offbeat commentaries on Channel 4, and Murray was, of course, the medical editor. This is some years before the actual beginning of the Genesis Fund, although he used to talk to me about this idea he had to start this organization and in which he would have all the services that patients needed for their often very complicated needs. And one Christmas Eve, I was dressed up in a Santa Claus suit, doing an offbeat commentary, giving funny presents to the politicians of the day. And Murray spotted me at walking around the newsroom with the Santa Claus suit. And he said, "Oh, you got to come over to the hospital and see the kids." This is when he was connected with the Kennedy Hospital over in Brighton. And I didn't want to go. I wanted to do my thing and get home and play Santa Claus with my own kids and the kids in the neighborhood. But Murray could be very persuasive, as we all know, in his own way, without being pushy at all. And he talked me into going over to the Kennedy Hospital. And I have to tell you that it was one of the most uplifting experiences of my life, because I could see the joy and the optimism that these kids had. Some of them impacted so much that they might not lift their heads off the pillow in their whole lives. But to see the expressions on their face when Murray Feingold walked into their presence was really inspiring. And it convinced me from that day that whatever this Genesis Fund was going to turn out to be, I wanted to be a part of it. And it was a great gift that Murray gave to me and to my family. And it's just one of the things that I'll never forget him for.
Thank you, Dick. Thank you. Dr. O'Brien, are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right.
So Dr. Feingold had a huge impact on my life even before I met him. When I graduated from college, I knew that I wanted to work with children with special healthcare needs, and I decided to become a special ed teacher. My first teaching job was at the Mass Hospital School. The kids in my classroom all had multi-system complex special healthcare needs, and they had frequent doctor's appointments. And the name I heard them mention over and over again was Dr. Feingold. When they talked about him, they were excited. They were almost reverent. They told me that he knew everything about them. He knew how to make them feel better. He knew how to keep them safe. And when I talked to their parents said the same thing. Dr. Feingold helped them navigate the medical system in a way that no one else did. The other doctors, all the specialists that their children had, took the children apart and they looked at the little pieces. They looked at their heart, they looked at their lungs. Dr. Feingold looked at the whole child and he integrated their care. I thought, well, that's what I want to do. At the time, Dr. Feingold was providing a service for these children and families that no one had even thought of doing. And it was vital for the comprehensive care and safety of his complex patients. Dr. Feingold was really creating a new kind of medical care. So I went to medical school and I chose Tufts because that's where Dr. Feingold practiced. I started working with him as a medical student, then as a fellow, and then as a colleague for many years. And he really was a pioneer in caring for children with complex medical needs. His passion for making the healthcare system work for his patients and families never wavered. He enlisted many colleagues to work with him in multidisciplinary clinics, which he started just because it was the right thing to do, and everybody joined in with him. More and more healthcare professionals began to realize that comprehensive coordinated care really is best practice. Dr. Feingold was a mentor to me and countless other professionals who now practice the kind of comprehensive care that he developed.
That was beautiful. Thank you very much. Thank you. So I have Rachel, Justin, Matthew. I know there are multiple Feingolds. I don't know how you want to do this, but I guess I'll be safe and turn it over to the oldest Feingold so that
Go ahead, Justin.
I don't get in trouble with anybody.
Too easy.
Hi.
Oh, the oldest. Okay, go ahead, Rachel.
Well, I'm going to quickly say hello. And I want to thank everybody for being here tonight. And so good to see Dr. O'Brien. I feel like I haven't seen you in so long. You were always I just thought you were so cool being the woman working with my dad and being a doctor. And I just always looked up to you. So it's great to see you here tonight. And thank you for being part of this. And Patrick Lyons too, like the coolest guy in Boston. So, but I also want to thank Matt Hoffman also for all the work he does, unpaid. And I know you're dealing with a lot of other things right now with COVID and your other employees and everything you have to go through. And also running this show is really important for our family that you're carrying on in good stead. But my father would be so proud and so thankful that you are here. And so on behalf of our whole family, I thank everybody for being part.
I'm just listening.
Dr. Nowak, of course, Dr. Nowak. Oh, there you are. I see you. And Dr. Nowak, of course, you're carrying on my dad's vision and doing it so well. And Dr. Johnson, everybody, and Mr. Flavin, everybody, and Natalie. Now I'm saying all your names. But thank you, everyone. So, and I'm excited to see everyone tonight, and I'm having fun already. So here's to Pop Pop. Go ahead.
Justin, do you want to go, or are you still angry about Rachel diving in like that? Or
Story of my life.
I know.
I didn't really prepare anything, but I mean, it's not easy. I mean, it's very easy just to speak of him. By the way, there's my lovely daughter.
Hi.
There's my mommy, and my son and Lisa is on her way. We're all down the Cape right now. I mean, it is nice to see everybody. And Rachel, you should know better not to start naming names, because if you forget people, then they're all going to get in. But it's just, I mean, July 17th is a day that, you know, it's been 5 years, and it went by, sometimes I think went by like a flash, and sometimes it seems like it's gone by forever. Obviously, there's not a day or a moment we don't think of him. Just generally, or if something happens and you're like, well, what would Dad do, and all of that. And I think that's everybody on this call probably thinks the same way in terms of, you know, that affected me because of Murray, Dr. Feingold, my father, and how he's helped so many people. And just even today, when someone hears my last name, they sometimes, you're not Murray's son, are you? And I'm like, I you know, proudly say I 100% am. And then they just go in stories, and then they tell, you know, what a great man he was. And I said he was as great a man as he was a better father. Today, my new tradition I've done for 5 years is I toast my family with a Diet Coke and 2 limes, because that's the way Pop-Pop wanted it. And so I welcome you if you want to add some rum. He never would, but to your Diet Coke, but because it's Friday night. But Diet Coke and 2 rums on ice. Have some, and then think of my father, please. And I thank everyone for being on the phone call. And I do see the Mahonies. I saw you guys up there. I haven't seen you in years. So happy hello and happy Friday to the Mahonies too. They're old school D'Angelo's with us. Other than that, again, for someone who didn't prepare much, I said a lot, didn't I? So let's go to Matthew and see what he has to say. So thank you, everybody, again.
There's an order.
You.
Hi, everybody. Woo, I got a lot of speakers here. I just want to say thank you as well. And we all miss my father very much, I think. And it's interesting. July 17th brings some sad memories, but then we just got 4 days to the 20th. And then you're like, you know what? That's a good thing to remember all, you know, the day he came to this world and really made the world a better place. And then you got to think about 1982, that when the Genesis Foundations, you know, first started and came into fruition. And then you think back then and you think what we maybe looked like this maybe in 82. There it is. There's Pop Pop with the Genesis Foundation still brewing in his brain, the lovely Lorinda, and there's lovely Rachel, and there's Justin. There I am, and Rusty and all that. So that was 82. That's when it all began. And there is my father and I. So we miss him all the time. And in honor of him, I also, Tyler, what is your full name? Will you tell us?
Tyler Murray Feingold.
Yeah, so Tyler Murray Feingold, and this is Molly Feingold, named after Daddy, Pop Pop's mom. So he lives on with all his patients that he helped and with his family. And we want to thank you for keeping his legacy alive. It means a lot to us, and it's an important legacy to keep alive because it's a world-changing thing that he's been doing, and it still needs to be done. So thank you all.
Well,
They're in trouble, by the way, showing that picture.
hey, let's take this offline, Justin. Okay?
That hairstyle was in back then.
Let's see, Susan Warnock, I'll give a special thank you for doing this only because I know how incredibly introverted you are. So for you to be able to do this in front of all these people means a lot to me. So.
Oh, well, Matt, it meant so much to me to be asked to be a part of this. Hi, everybody. I'm delighted to see everybody and so thrilled to be a part of this. After Matt and I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, I spent a lot of time thinking about what can I say? How in the world am I going to, in just a couple of minutes, be able to explain how much I loved Murray and what Murray meant in my life, and how he actually changed my life. Because back in the day when he was starting, I was not the original board member, but my ex-husband, Bob Lobel, another name that many of you may remember, he was. And so I was in on a lot of the stuff. And then as the years went by, I went from just knowing him peripherally to really thinking this is an amazing guy who I want to be a part of this and I want to help. And then Nat and Chet came to me and talked about the possibility of doing a telethon with Murray and Dr. Nowak. And I said, absolutely, I'd love to be able to do that. And we did that at Channel 5 for many years, even though Murray's, station was Channel 4. And to Tim's earlier point, it just shows the marriage and the commitment of what otherwise would be thought of as competitors. There was no competition when it came to Murray. It was one big happy family. And the thing about the telethons was that I would get to meet so many of the families. And, we've already heard words about, like scared and confused and fear and all that. When I met some of these families, their message unanimously was, I don't know what I would have done without Dr. Feingold. I don't know where my family would be. I don't know. I didn't know hope. I didn't know optimism. I mean, it was all about always the improvements and the positivity that Dr. Feingold brought to so many people, including mine. And I have to say that another thing that always stunned me about Murray is that when he would come to Channel 5 for the telethon, of course he knew all the families and the patients and the extended brothers and sisters and everybody's name, but he knew the staff at Channel 5. I mean, he made it a point to know people, to connect to people. And even though it wasn't his home base, in many ways, it was just an extension of who he was and what he did. And you know what, Matt, I'm going to say it for everybody who's on this call. Murray's smiling, his memory shines, and he's looking down on you, my friend, and all the wonderful things that you've done. And we need to use this as an opportunity to thank you for all of that. And Lorinda, the family, it's so great to see everybody. Rachel, you look more like your dad than anybody ever would have guessed in that picture in 1982. But you know what? We were so lucky to have him. And I personally, and I know I speak for everybody, am committed to making sure that Murray's goals and his heart will forever, as long as I'm alive, be one of my goals and an extension of my heart. And thanks for letting me participate. And thank you for letting me talk before Natalie.
I am getting more and more trouble with each person I call on. This is not working out well for me here, but seriously, Susan, thank you very much. Rich Sawyer, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Kathleen and I were talking about this today. We talk about it often, but we recall our life pre-Murray Feingold, where it was endless rides to Boston from referrals that our pediatrician gave us. And you'd show up at these appointments and think, okay, today's going to be the day that the puzzle is completed and we're going to have our answer and life's going to be normal, quote unquote normal. And this went on for 2 or 3 years, and 4 years. And by the time Michael was about 4, getting ready to enter into schools, we were just so desperate and down and scared. And we really didn't know what was going to happen because no one knew what was, and I don't say it this way, but what was wrong with Michael. And we don't even talk like that because it's actually what's right with Michael. He's just perfect. But the day we reached out to the National Birth Defect Center it was a very stressful day. And an hour after I called, Dr. Feingold called me back because he could tell how frantic we were. And the very next morning he saw us and he gave us 2 hours of the most unbelievable attention. And over the next month after that, all the answers came to us. And even though there's never a pill that's going to change Michael, what vanished from our life immediately was the stress. We were no longer afraid that he was going to have seizures or afraid that he was sick. He opened up our world to a beautiful thing. And we're just one family where that's happened. He's done this with so many, but we were the only one that we cared about at the time. A year later, Michael's riding a horse, doing all these different things that we never would have dreamt that he could have done. And we will be forever grateful for what he's done for our family because we don't, we are who we are, but we don't have any kind of stress. I could go on, and I'm probably rambling, but the attention that he gave to us and he spoke to me and my wife, he spoke to Kathleen and me as if we were his own children. And he said, breathe and you're going to be fine. And he was right. And you have hope, you have confidence in where you're going. Nothing else matters. Once you've got those things down, the actual situation is so much more manageable. And that's why I'm so honored to be a part of this, because Mike, there's another Michael every day coming down that's going to need this kind of attention. And it's just we're just forever indebted to Dr. Feingold and this whole mission. It's made our life pretty okay. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Rich, for sharing your story, and also for those who don't know, for your service as a director of the Genesis Foundation. The time, the talent, the treasure, you do it all, and I'm really, really grateful for everything that you've been doing. It's been wonderful getting to know you. Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Natalie?
I'm not hearing her.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. One of the things that strikes me about Murray, always has, is he's such a gifted human being. I remember being in examining rooms with him on occasion, and the parents were there. You could tell they were nervous, and the little child, of course, was compromised and also scared. And then Murray comes in, and he's warm, he's kind of cuddly, he's funny. He and Tim have a contest, I think, about who's the funniest guy and who has the best jokes. And the patient would laugh, the little boy, the little girl would laugh. So he had that gift of relating to you as a human being. And then add to that, speaking of the parent, from a parent's point of view, so you have a child and the child has an issue and your pediatrician couldn't quite figure it out. So Tim's a pediatrician, Tim's a geneticist, and he was also a gifted diagnostician. So if you're the parent and he didn't sugarcoat things or mince words or lie to you, he told you the truth. I've always believed that knowing the truth is less frightening than not knowing it. And then he guided those parents to the different cares that the child would need. As Murray would explain to us, if a child was born with a cardiac problem, he also often had something else, say a neurological problem. Well, that's great. So, you're a parent in, Braintree, and what do you know from all these experts? Well, Tim knew, and he knew what you needed. So as a parent, then you got comfort from that. So in addition to all of that, this amazing guy creates, as Tim so well said, gives up
Hey,
his
Murray, not Tim.
we were close, but not that close.
No, what I mean is, you so well said, Tim,
Oh,
gave
okay.
a prestigious position is what I was trying to say
Oh,
at Tufts, where he was the head of pediatric, what was his title there? I don't even remember.
genetics.
Genetics, okay.
Yeah.
And he gave that up to start this organization. So that's the other part of him. So here's this warm, friendly, sweet little Jewish doctor. And he's also this amazingly organized leader who can speak to anybody, whether it's McLaughlin or the head of some major corporation, and certainly all of us on the board, and convince every athlete from Havlicek to Yaz to you name it, that this was a cause. They had to be part of this. And of course people would want to give, hi Brian, of course people would want to give money if they just were made aware of what these kids needed and what was possible. So my gosh, Murray Feingold just wore so many hats. He was the head of Franciscan Children's Hospital. At the same time, he was running the Genesis Fund. He could do it all. And I like to think that people you love and people who have had such an impact on so many people never die. And I think that's what this is all about. Murray Feingold will live forever.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Natalie. Catherine Nowak.
Hello. I knew that tonight we were going to hear a lot about Dr. Feingold's professionalism and his dedication to the patients and his dedication to the mission of the Genesis Foundation. And so I decided I would focus on some of the more behind the scenes stuff. So I have a visual to show you, not pictures, but any of you who spent any time in any of Murray's offices, and I know Jane O'Brien, you would recognize this from Murray's desk. There was, always this crystal jar with spice drops in it. And it moved from his office at Franciscan to his office at 42nd Avenue on the 4th floor, and then the office on the 5th floor, and then over to the NSTAR building, and it went everywhere. And I think I remember the candy jar so well because I have a pretty significant sweet tooth, which I think Murray did as well. And so I would be sitting in his office and we'd be discussing a case. We'd sometimes veer off topic and we'd start, debating the pros and cons of certain flavors or certain colors in the candy jar. And I remember that although he liked black licorice, he said he would never eat it because it would turn your tongue black and that was not a good look for patients. And he advised that I shouldn't do that either. So I don't know how he kept the jar stocked. I don't think I ever saw it empty, but I don't know if Caroline had the job of filling it, or Cindy, or Lorinda, maybe you packed up supplies for him in his briefcase before he came into work, but it always had candy in it. And basically, I think the thing that impressed me always about Murray, aside from all the things we've heard, was that playful spirit that he had. The magic tricks were, of course, part of that as well. And such a genius move because it put the parents at ease. The kids weren't scared of him. And while the kids were being distracted by his magic trick, he was actually observing them and cataloging parts of their exam without actually bothering them with it. And there was another memory that I remembered about his playful side, where we were in the office at 42nd Avenue office, had this big, long, narrow corridor where his office was at one end and the clinic area was at the other. And my son, AJ, was there with me that day for some reason. He was just a little toddler. And he was kind of a shy kid, and we used to call him Mr. Ed because he wouldn't speak outside the house. So he's sort of walking down the hall and looks up, and here comes Murray, striding down the hall, his white coat on. He's this big, tall guy, and AJ kind of panics a little bit. And just as only a toddler would do, he stops dead in his tracks and plasters himself against the wall. Like somehow Murray couldn't see him anymore now. And without missing a step, Murray did the exact same thing. He stopped dead in his tracks, plastered himself against the opposite wall, and just stood stock still, and just kind of eyeing AJ from the side until AJ gave him a little shy smile and then was feeling comfortable and safe again and moved along. And it just, I don't know why that sort of just stuck in my memory about just how playful he could be. The other thing that I think that points to is really the little ways that he would engage kids and be mindful of their state of mind and look really for the best way to kind of get them to feel safe. And that was such a big part of his mojo, and why the families and the kids came back to him year after year after year after year after year after year until they were like well into their adulthood. And this, in summary of my section, I recently ran across a quotation that I immediately wrote down because as soon as I heard it, I knew at some point I would have an opportunity to use this quotation in reference to Murray. And the quotation is, "What we do for ourselves dies with us. What we do for others and for the world remains and is immortal." And I think what we're hearing tonight and what we will keep hearing, I think we're all in agreement that what Murray did for others, his commitment to improving the system of care for children and families coping with rare disorders, he certainly left the world a better place, and that is truly his lasting legacy.
Thank you, Catherine. That was wonderful. Thank you. Well, that is the end of the formal part of our program. If anybody would like to say anything, feel free to do so. We'll just try to see if it just happens organically rather than having to mute and unmute people. So you just go for it if there's anything you'd like to.
Am I on the speaker here? Could you hear me?
Yes. Hey, Brian.
This is Brian. Hi, how are you? So I'm here where I need some help here, Rachel and Lorinda, maybe. Was it a surprise 60th birthday we had here at the Falmouth House? Or was it the 70th?
Doesn't matter.
It was 70. It was 70.
I'm not sure, but,
It was 70.
you know, we had so much fun times here with Murray and July 4th. And I'll share one quick story. When I first met Murray, and I took Brian there to meet him. I said, well, look, we were in Onset, and Murray was at Mashney Island. And I said, Murray, why don't you, I'd love to see you on the 4th of July. I got a boat. He said, oh, really? He says, well, I'll come out with you. So you may remember Justin Matthew. He was on the dock over in Onset. And I pulled up there, and I had the bow of the boat. And I got a speaker. Of course, and I said, Dr. Feingold. And he was like ducking, and he got on the bow of the boat. Do you remember that, Matthew?
Yes.
The 4th of July in Onset. And we went out and watched the fireworks. But he was like ducking. He was so embarrassed. We made a lot of noise picking him up there. It was so much fun.
Well, Brian, I'm interrupting because I remember another story I thought you were about to tell about the boat on the old Pocket, when he was going around Onset towards Bourne Harbor, and you have to hug those. If you don't hug him, you're hitting the sandbar, and you let him drive it for not even 2 minutes. And he took your boat into the sandbar, and you just, in typical, you just looked over at him, laughed, and you got us out of there. He wasn't manning that boat for 2 minutes, and he hit the sandbar. And I'm like, that's Brian. I didn't mean to interrupt, but go ahead.
We had so many wonderful times, and I know I was out in my Intrepid. I joined a little bit late because we rushed over from the Vineyard, but that was also his favorite boat, if you remember. He would always go out. I'd say, I'm going to pick you up at the dock over there. It was low motors, and we had so much wonderful time. So, it's just.
Brian, I loved your friendship with my father because you were just two awesome people. We had the best time together. He got such a kick out of you, and you got a kick out of him, and you got into trouble. And I love that you got him into trouble. And it was such a fun relationship. I love watching the two in action.
Funny thing is, you remember we used to play tennis? I don't think I ever beat him. 20 years younger than him. They're about 15 years younger. I never beat him.
Neither does Rachel.
Yeah, so that's I know you all know how much I love them, so I don't want to delay to keep talking with other folks.
But yeah, you were a great friend to him and to the Genesis Fund. I know my daughter Phoebe wants to say a quick story about Pop.
Yeah, hi, I'm Phoebe. I'm Rachel's daughter, and Murray was my grandfather. And my mom was just telling the story to our family a couple days ago again, and I thought it would be fun to share it here. When I was 4, my parents realized that I had sugar thumb on both hands, so I couldn't raise my thumbs above this. And I couldn't straighten them. And my brother is the one who realized. My parents didn't realize. It was just something that nobody really figured out until I was about 4. And when my pop heard that he had missed his granddaughter having sugar thumb, he went through every single picture of me, trying to convince himself that maybe it was or that he had missed it. That he hadn't missed it, that it is just something that had just appeared, because he could not believe that he had gone this long without figuring out his granddaughter couldn't straighten her fingers, which just shows that he was so worried about every single person in his life, and he wanted to be the best person for everyone else. And I miss him so much. He was just such a beautiful person. So that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you.
So this is Jessica. I'm the longtime genetic counselor to Dr. Feingold and now Dr. Nowak, and both of them at the same time. And it has been such an honor to have been elbow to elbow with Murray in the exam room and watch and learn from him firsthand and feel the stress just evaporate out of the room. And I'm lucky that I've been able to continue to see the same patients that he followed for so many years. And one thing that has always been striking to me is so often I see them and they all say to me, you know what, I will never forget what Dr. Feingold said to us. And they will say that one-liner or whatever it is that just meant those, whatever, that single sentence meant the world to that family. And those words were so powerful. And what is striking is that it's not the same words. It's not a buzz line that he said to everybody. It was customized. It was unique. It was because he really connected and really understood that child, that family. And as much as he's done a wonderful job training so many other doctors and fellows and genetic counselors, and Dr. Nowak and Dr. O'Brien and countless others in the greater Boston area and across the nation and world. But I feel very fortunate that I'm continuing to learn from Murray, because his patients are so compelled to tell me something about them, to tell me the line. What was the line that really changed, was pivotal to how they were feeling at that time? And I absorbed those. And so I encourage everybody to continue sharing those one-liners, to share that thing that made you feel better, because you never know when that is going to have an impact on somebody else. So I try to absorb those and catalog those and channel my inner Murray as a practitioner myself whenever I can.
That's sweet.
My name is Tom Hamill. I've been was a patient of Dr. Feingold's 40 some odd years ago, and I first met him when I was a kid, and I still distinctly remember how he was pretty much the only doctor I looked forward to seeing, because of his magic tricks and because of all the other reasons that people have talked about. I very much remember sitting in a room when I was about to have some major jaw distraction or major jaw surgery, and there were 7 or 8 doctors there, and he told them all that I was the one in charge and that I was the one that get to make decisions as a kid as to what was going to happen. And it was a very empowering moment. I was fortunate enough to be one of the speakers at dinner honoring Dr. Feingold back in the 90s. I think I was one of the patient speakers. And I think all these events kind of propelled me toward my adulthood, where I now have put together retreats for people that have Treacher-Collins syndrome like myself. We've done 10 of them. The people have come from around the world to gather. We've had doctors come to these retreats, and we emphasize with all of them how important, because of what I learned from Dr. Feingold, the importance of that patient-doctor relationship. And we have convinced them to stay with us during this whole weekend, and they come to, not only do they speak to all the patients that are there, but they come to our dance parties at night, and they participate with us as people and not just as that doctor-patient relationship. And I really see the influence of Dr. Feingold throughout my whole life, and continuing to be an advocate for patients. So thank you for putting this together. I really enjoyed hearing the stories.
I remember you, Tom, from a long time ago. I'm Justin, the son, but thank you for being on. I do remember you though, but my daughter, Zoe, wants to say something, so.
That was great. I'm really glad to hear how much my grandfather has touched you and has meant to you and has changed your life. He's changed mine too. So my name is Zoe Feingold. I am Dr. Feingold Murray Pop-Up, his oldest granddaughter. I recently graduated from college in December, and in January I started working at Spalding Rehab Hospital in Charlestown. And I started as an intern, and my first week, I remember being introduced to Dr. Oz Mendejar, who is the vice president of all of Spalding Rehab Hospital. And he sees my name tag, and I'm just a little intern. I'm fresh on the job. I'm just doing whatever I can to help and trying my best to keep up with everyone else. And he goes, Feingold, like Dr. Murray Feingold. I go, yeah, that was my grandfather. Do you know each other? And he goes on and on about all of these different magic tricks he did, and how he tried to replicate some of his patients when he was practicing. And that's when I knew, one, that my grandfather touched everyone's lives that he came across, but also it's a really great thing that I have the last name Feingold, because now the vice president of Spalding knows my name and always says hi to me. So I'll keep it short and sweet. I'm so thankful for everyone being here and for everybody who's sharing their story and who's touched by my grandfather, because I was too, and it's really inspiring to see everybody and also be able to follow hopefully in his footsteps one day. It's a big shout out to be in, but I'm very proud to have spent so much time with him to be his granddaughter. So thank you guys.
It's my daughter.
Sorry.
Thanks, Zoe.
I'm supposed to ask if Jack Stein wants to say something. The Feingolds are kind of taking over. Sorry. You want to say something? Nana asked me to ask you.
Yeah, I mean, I can. Thank you, Nana, for putting me on the spot like that. I always had definitely a really close relationship with Pop Pop. It was crazy how he just was definitely that figure in my life that really, he knew everything. He was the best at everything. Yeah, I vividly remember him beating me and my dad over and over in corn toss. He was always just the king playing that game. And that was just one way in which I felt like I had so much to learn. And I still have so much to learn from him and from remembering him and the things he did and the things he has to teach all of us. So I feel really proud, and everything I learned about him makes me even more honored to be related to him and to have, his blood in my veins, and to remember him as someone that I got to spend so much time with and be a part of my family. So I really appreciate that, and I miss him a lot.
Take over, Hoffman.
I can take over. I don't know if there is anybody else who would like to share a memory, make a comment, or even ask a question, perhaps for the the relatively newcomers who want to.
May I? Can we say something? Oh, sorry. Do you want to go ahead? I'll just say something real quick. We're the Mahoney family. I want to thank Brian McLaughlin for referring us to Dr. Feingold. I worked at D'Angelo's when my daughter Julia was born, which was just about 23 years ago. And we went to see Dr. Feingold right away. And his line to us at the time was that she will be happy and she will bring happiness to your family. And that's what we needed to hear, and he was right. And he's helped us so many times over the years. He's been a wonderful support. And now we see Dr. Nowak, and we just appreciate everything that Dr. Feingold did for Julia and our family.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And what I was going to say is, I'm Jenny. I'm the intake and triage coordinator at the Feingold Center. I've been there 15 years. So I've been with Dr. Feingold and with the team for some time. Lots of words that I could say about Dr. Feingold, but if you would humor me, the thing I think he would appreciate is the fact that I was the first person he allowed to work from home. I was pregnant 11 years ago, and he was trying to wrap his head around how to work with someone that could provide at the office, but also work from home. It was really fantastic. So since then, we've been working together at the Feingold Center. It's amazing.
And I will also say, Patricia, when you mentioned Brian, who spoke before and is on this, is that I know this discussion is about Murray, but it was because of Brian McLaughlin and his family that enabled Murray and his team to do so much and able to expand, our patient base and who we were able to see because of Brian's generosity and the tremendous amount of time he spent with this organization as its board chair for many years. So, I mean, Brian, you know this, but I don't like to say anything is impossible, so I'll say it's almost impossible that all of us would be here and celebrating the successes of this organization were it not for you. So, thank you very much.
Matt, I got an email from one of Dr. Feingold's patients last week, and I think they planned to be here at this meeting because they said they registered for it. And I don't know if David and Judith and Jay, if you're there, you can speak for yourselves.
Yes.
But
we've been lurking.
You've been lurking. So you've
been one of the
say something.
We brought our son Jay down to Boston from Maine for 30 years.
No, 40.
Time passes fast when you're having fun. And it was always a treat for Jay and for us. And I can't say enough great things about Murray. I'd be repeating what everybody else has been saying. You were at the center of what his attention was when you were with him, and there wasn't anybody else. And the care that he gave not only to our son, but to our daughter, who always tagged along with the monkey on his stethoscope and the jokes and the magic tricks. It was hugely empowering. And professionally, I worked with kids with disabilities for 30 years. And I always felt like I was getting a master class when we went down for our Murray appointments.
We've also discovered after we left the Feingold Center and had to go to adult services at another organization that what we found with Murray was that he knew everybody. He knew who to send us to when we needed help with orthopedics or when we needed help with, I don't know, jaw surgery or whatever. He would know exactly who to send us to, and he would hook us right up. And when we ended up going somewhere else, we were in charge of finding that out. There wasn't a Murray. There wasn't somebody who could send us in the right direction. And it's hard to do when you have to do it on your own. And we miss him, and we miss you.
Well, thanks for that. That was nice memories.
Dorothea, did you want to say something? I assume that was the real Dorothea.
About Dr. Murray?
Well, no, I don't know. There was somebody who sent me a chat, but I know your name appears in multiple places, so I don't know if it was actually you or a different.
Oh, that was me. That was me, yes.
Okay.
That was me. I would like to say something. It's been so heartwarming to hear everyone's thoughts and experiences with Dr. Murray. I wish I could have experienced him and met him years before. So nice to hear all of these wonderful words. It's really heartwarming.
Thank you. Well, it is 7 o'clock. I'll just take one more second to wrap up unless somebody else would like to say something. Please feel free to speak if you'd like.
Well, you know, Matt, there's been a lot of mention about his magic tricks. And he used to keep his tricks right in the pocket of his jacket. And sometimes he'd be out to dinner with them, and halfway through dinner, he'd reach into his pocket and pull out a magic trick. And some of them he made him know how to work.
All right. Well, thank you all very much for joining this. I have really enjoyed it, and I hope you have too. You know, part of this conversation and what we call these 4 days for Murray, and I know Murray is looking down, and he'd kill me if I didn't say something about. If you are so inclined, there is a link either on our website or through the chat at the bottom. If you are so moved to make a donation, I mean, particularly now, it's no secret that fundraising environment is difficult, and if there is a gift that you are considering, we would love it. We appreciate it. You know, Jessica and Jenny and Dr. Nowak and her team, even through this pandemic, have been going forward. Obviously, the visits have been virtual, which I guess for some parents who don't want to do the drive or can't do the drive, especially with other kids or whatever, perhaps this has been a slight blessing. But she and her team have just soldiered on and continued to see patients, and so we continue to run things as we have been, including our mother to baby program, as well as our therapeutic programs that are starting to open up again as people are allowed for in-person visits and the like. So any support would be greatly appreciated. And again, I want to thank you very much for joining us, and hopefully we'll see a lot of you in person soon. So thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you,
Thank you
everybody.
all.
Including me, Matt.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Doing this, Matt.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Everyone.